Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I was here most of the day and it was hugely interesting. I must say it's quite different from what we normally have as conferences in Europe. First of all, because we are almost all female, but also I think it's much more exciting. You have much more exciting presentator, you have more exciting ways of presenting, but also the stories we heard today, the ambassadors, the awardees, and all the speakers were hugely exciting. So I think it's really has been a very interesting day, and I would like to thank you to give me the possibility to say a few concluding words, not too long, because I all think that we had already even so interesting, but also a long day. When I started to think about women in energy from a European context, I came across three examples. First of all, the Polish-born Maria Sklodowska-Curie, who was the one who discovered the mysterious element radium, who opened the door to deep changes in the way scientists think about matter and energy. We celebrate her with the Curie Awards in research in Europe. Secondly, to take an example from industry, we have very, very few CEO women in energy. But recently, the French company Engie, former GDF, Gaz de France, has nominated Isabelle Cochet as the CEO. She's a woman with 5 kids, and she is operating in 63 countries. Last but least, a female politician from the country I'm from Germany. She was very much engaged in energy and climate, environmental policy, and she's now the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, who has been quite interesting from a purely national context, being a Protestant, being from East Germany in a conservative party, and now being the Chancellor of Germany since at least 10 years. So these are some examples. We heard more today of good example. Myself, I came to energy maybe 10 years ago, and if I was listening to the previous presenter on negotiation skills and how badly relatively we are performing, 10 years ago, before working in industry, I applied for a job in the space industry, space policy, in the European Commission already, and I didn't get the job, and the boss told me, "You are too nice." So I ended up working for energy and energy policy in the European Commission for now 10 years. And I think with a male environment, and it's very much a male environment, and the necessity to be in panels and all that, I think you learn to negotiate. But still, I found it very, very interesting today to listen to what happened. So the subject of the conference, the role of women internationally in decarbonizing our energy future, was a very actual topic. If we look back to 2015, we got the COP21 and the Paris Agreement. I think that is really a major, major achievement. And that put renewable energy at the forefront from all the energy and climate policies. So we need now to make sure that this mechanism to implement the COP21 is also happening. Half of the 185 country contributions, the INDCs, have included explicit energy targets, mostly focusing on increasing renewables. And that goes alongside a record-breaking 164 countries now working to their own renewable energy targets. We have in Europe set out a 27% renewables share for 2030. That means more or less half of the energy of the electricity will come from renewables by 2030 in Europe. And we have huge differences among the countries. There are some leading, like Germany or the northern part, and some others where, by the way, there is more sun than in the north. They still have to catch up, like Greece and other European countries. But we are working to implement these 2030 targets in the renewables right now. If we then go on the further implementation for this year's program, from a European point of view, one of our big priorities is how to integrate these renewables in a market. We speak about a new electricity market design, which we will present before the end of the year. And that means that not the renewables need to adopt, but also the market needs to adopt, and that the renewables becoming more competitive will need to be better integrated in the market. And we still need, as long as we don't have the storage capacity, we still need a backup, and in Europe it's mostly gas and still some coal or nuclear. We also want to empower consumers so that they take ownership of the energy they produce and they consume. We have, in that context, also coming up renewables not only in the power industry, but also in the heating and cooling sector. In Europe, it's mainly heating, less cooling than maybe in California, where you need to put more effort also in cooling. In Europe, it's basically 3% which goes in cooling and the rest goes in heating. And it's still dominated by gas. So we will make much more effort to put renewables also in the heating and cooling strategy. Looking at the climate side, we have an emission trading system which is basically working. We are cutting CO2 emissions. We are already well above the 20% targets for 2020 EU-wide, but the carbon price is relatively low right now. So we are reforming our emission trading system, and this year we are also proposing something to cover what we call the non-ETS, the non-emission trading system, sectors like transport or buildings or industry. When I looked here and what are the challenges facing women in the energy sector, I think we have a voice as policies and programs are designed or implemented with women in leadership roles, and we heard some very interesting example today. There are still too few women working in clean energy for the sector, certainly in Europe, to realize its full potential. Women are generally underrepresented in science, technology, engineering, and math, which are prominent pathways into energy career. Women are also underrepresented at energy industry conferences and on corporate boards. We heard a good example from the UK today, but it's not everywhere. At least in Germany, there are no women or hardly any women on boards. We need to make the framework and have more women in future in all aspects. Let me come then to a last point, which was also on the agenda of today, the point on energy access. So we know that it's time to empower people and consumers to make sustainable choices. This is one of our priorities. But far too many of us, the problem is not unsustainable choices, but a lack of choices in the first place. And this is especially true for girls and women. We have, since 2001, the 189 UN member states endorsed the Millennium Development Goals and committed themselves to eliminating poverty. Energy access for all is crucial. Worldwide, and we heard that also today, about 1.6 billion people lack access to electricity, and the vast majority of those rely on kerosene lanterns for lighting. More than 3 billion also rely on biomass for cooking and heating. The lack of clean and affordable sources of energy, most often in rural areas, affects women and children most. They are the ones who may spend hours foraging for firewood or other biomass to burn, and they are primarily the ones who tend the fire. So we need more examples, like we heard just now, the woman who get the business done in Tanzania, to have and help that this is also changing in the African world. Let me conclude. I think we learned a lot today, and the empowerment of women must be the foundation for development across the world. This belongs also to the energy sector. Focusing on affordability is vital in terms of ensuring smart access to energy for both men and women. Many of the smart appliances coming into the market will help consumers manage their consumption and reduce their energy bills. But consumers need to be able to afford to buy them in the first place. The same applies to investments in energy efficiency improvements and renewables for self-generation. Smart and sustainable access to energy for men and women can best work in smartly regulated competitive environments, which can deliver market-based and innovative solutions. This requires sound public choices, a holistic approach, and long-term commitment, and gender-specific perspectives that must be integrated at the design stage of policy and programming. And let me quote Marie Curie, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It's only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." Thank you very much.